Good morning and welcome to my Tormented Demons money making method guide. The Tormented Synapse has gone up an insane amount prior to Yama's release on May 14th. So Tormented Demons have become really good, more than 9 mil GP an hour. They also got buffed a bit after release and after some of the day of release guides because there's now a teleport, which means you could take a more aggressive setup and not need to worry too much about supply usage. They are really good money, and unlike a lot of the other high-end money makers, don't benefit from mega rares because the best in slot are just the Synapse weapons, which are about 70 mil each right now. So it's pretty good for mid-level players trying to make some cash. Here we are in the DPS calc. As you can see, TDs can be killed with all three styles, and it really doesn't matter too much what gear you have as long as you have a Synapse weapon. You're generally going to be 8 to 9 DPS in a mid-game setup and 9 to 10 in an end-game setup, but that's a pretty small difference considering the gear cost. And if we switch to the unshielded mode, which is about half of the fight, then it's pretty much 11 to 12 and then 11 to 12 across the board. So either way, you really can't go wrong with any style. However, note that Mage does have a much higher cost to cast the Demon Bane spell, so it's not really the best option. But if you have pretty bad gear, then it will beat range. Greater Demons are a pretty high-weighted Slayer task from Duradel, so it's very worth tutorial skipping to get a task. They also get pretty good Slayer XP an hour. So here we are in what I consider a pretty mid-game setup. The highlight is the Synapse weapons as well as our Burning Claw special attack. Beyond that, we just have some moderate melee gear, moderate range gear. I don't have a Berserker Ring imbued to use, but I would have that instead. This setup overall is not that expensive. Let's see how much it is overall. It's just under 200 mil, and pretty much all of that is the weapons. But for 200 mil, in about 20-25 hours, you'll make your entire set back, which is really good compared to rates where you need like a 5 bill setup to make pretty similar GP an hour. Let's get going to Tormented Demons. As you can see, we summoned the Mage Thrall because we are not using Mage. At the start of the kill, I attack it and then step back so that it can show me whether or not it's meleeing. That lets me avoid the damage. However, this time it can either mage or range, so there's no real good way to avoid the damage. We have to chance a hit, though it's still only a 50-50. We're doing pretty good damage, and we're still in the defense roll phase where it can miss. Later on, we'll be unable to miss, but that's not yet. In this setup without a quiver, we only have one proc weapon. That's going to be the D2H, which we use on the unshielded hit, but even that will still be plenty. And really, our damage taken does not matter too much because the teleport is basically right here. But even still, you can see that in this 200 mil setup, we're getting very good kills per hour and not using too many supplies. And here we are in a near max set. I'm unfortunately missing a few items, but this is still pretty solid. I have absolute max melee. The primordial boots do not give a max hit over the Arania boots with this setup, so the Arania boots are just better. On the range side, I have a 6-way. I unfortunately do not own the Vendor Ring or the Zerat Van braces, but this is still pretty solid. In the quiver, I have Ruby Dragon Boltsy as well as my Amethyst Arrows. This is for the shield special. I don't have a ballista, so I'm using an Armadillo crossbow on long range. It still gets the job done, and sometimes you get a nice Ruby proc. For melee procs, I have my D2H, and as I should have said earlier, it is on Crush, and my Arclight is on Stab. I also have a Void Waker as my special attack weapon. Ignore the fact that it's transmog to a Kopesh. It's a Void Waker. This is nice because it is a magic-based hit, so if I use it to go past the 150 HP threshold and proc a new phase, I can set the TD to magic, which means that I can stay in melee, which is my best DPS. Let's go to TDs. If possible, you really do want to get both 2 spots to yourself because you will dramatically increase your DPS by being able to not have to wait for respawns, but if you can't, then that's still fine. You can see here, every 150 HP I pre-switch when I see that the hit's going to go. And this time, if possible, I'm going to Void Waker over the threshold if I don't hit too high. And that would let me keep it as Prey Mage, and then I can go back to my Emberlight. And as you can see, it's pretty noticeably faster than the more budget setup, but the budget setup was still totally fine. In max like this, you generally will not see a second shield phase, or it'll be at 1 HP. I do have rubies, so if I got a low HP ruby proc on the second phase, that's a bit bad, but again, most of the time you will not even see a second phase ruby, so it won't be an issue.